Hello and welcome to Monet Cafe. I'm artist Susan Jenkins and we're going to have some pastel painting fun. In this lesson, we're going to simplify the concept of layering and talk about why it's so important using my simplified concept of painting from the roots up. Hello, beautiful artist. In this lesson, I'm really hoping some of you will have maybe an aha moment like I did when I was getting kind of frustrated with soft pastel painting. We talk about the concept of layering often, but I like to give analogies and break things down to make it a little bit easier. And when I started thinking of painting in layers, much like planting a garden, it really helped to advance my work to look more painterly and artistic. So the principle is painting from the roots up or from the ground up. Again, much like planting a garden. And this is the concept of layering that I think is really going to help you. And I hope this example helps a lot. So let me do a quick example for you, and then we're going to have a full tutorial. So let me know if you learn a lot too. I love to hear from you. Here we go. Before we get started, it would be awesome if you'd go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel. And like I said before, leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you thought of this video. Before the full tutorial, let me give you a quick little example on this Canson unsanded surface. It's called Canson XL, and it's not sanded like a lot of sanded surfaces, but it has a texture. It's called sand grain, and it's really great for a lot of studies or pastel sketching. So here's a quick little concept sketch of what I mean by painting from the roots up. Now this paper doesn't take layering like a lot of sanded papers. It's just got a little bit of texture. But even on unsanded papers, you can get a few layers in and understand this concept. The surface I'll be using, I'm going to be doing an underpainting, but I often like to tone my surface, especially if it's a white surface. So that's why I like sometimes just using papers that already have a tone or a value to them. In this case, gray. Gray paper is great to work on. All right, so these poppies are nestled in some deep grasses. At first look, we see the tops of the poppies. They steal the show. Then we see the light grasses. But what's going on underneath there is literally the ground and the tangle of grasses underneath the ground. So it might seem a little dark at first, but I'm just using this one set of pastels, the Sennelier Paris collection. But what I'm going to do is I've got a dark blue here, and I'm just going to get some of the direction of these grasses, and I'm thinking of it being down on the earth, deep into the earth. We've also got a dark band of trees going on back here, so I'm just going to gradually just scumble that in, or quickly I should say, scumble that in. And now let's think about getting our next level. Now you could blend this if you want. I think I will blend it. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'll blend it with a paper towel. I find that on surfaces that aren't too incredibly sanded, paper towels work great, or tissues. I'm using a tissue here. Now, even though this is our lighter area, I'm going to use a little bit of this residue of this tissue just to get in a little bit back in there. And in the full tutorial, you'll be able to see me do this with more layering, actually. All right, so we've got a nice little value study going on there. I'm going to get in some more of these. Now, I got to be careful because this won't give me the amount of layers that I can get with my other surfaces. So I only have like maybe 3 or 4 layers here. So there's my deep tangle of grasses. Now I know I'm going to have some other greens that are also very deep and dark. Another color, I almost said purple right there. Another color that is great for depth is purple. Often colors cool off a little bit when they get down deep. So now let me go ahead and get in maybe some of my lighter grasses and some of the grasses that are catching a little bit more of the light. So we went from the ground, the deepest shadows, to some grasses that are darker because they're buried down deep, closer to the ground. And now we've got some of these grasses are just kind of nestled and resting on the top. Think of how the sun is hitting things as well. There's our lighter, again, a little bit lighter in value than my last green. And now let's get even some greens that are even lighter still. Sorry for my easel shaking so much. This one is, yes, this is a little lighter. It's a little bright, but I'm just going to stick with the set that I have here, and that should work. Let me see. This one might be okay. We'll use a little bit of both of those. Okay, so I'm going to get a little bit. We've got grasses kind of on the tops now. See, we're going like a garden. We planted it. It's starting to grow, and we're gradually getting our lightest values on the tops. And maybe we've got a field back there with some grasses growing. And also, this happens to be the kind of camera angle where the viewer is lower. So we're going to see more underneath rather than some of those grasses from a top angle view down. So now we've got our next. See how we have the roots still underneath here showing? And now typically if flowers are large, I would have already sketched some in, but I think I still have or layered some in. I still think I have enough layering ability now to, probably a few layers, to be able to get some of these flowers in. So let me just do a couple of flowers maybe. Let's get one of these. Notice I've got a dark. What I'm doing, even from, not just from the roots up or the ground up, but with flowers, kind of think of it from the inside out. Okay, the inside of this flower is going to have some darker values to it. Let me get another little one maybe back in here. And you want to keep your flowers nice and lyrical. Again, we're going to have a full tutorial on this, so I have to resist the urge to get too crazy. So there's kind of a darker value. Initially, when I first started painting, I would have grabbed that red, immediately. So I could even get a little bit darker. Let me grab kind of a nice magenta here. You see this? This is a Terry Ludwig magenta. Again, from the inside out. I could have put this down first. I'm looking at maybe where some of those petals are coming in to the inside. There's petals underneath here. The light's coming from above, so some of these petals underneath are going to have a little bit more shadow. They're not going to be as dark way in the distance because they're far away. Value gets lighter as things progress into the distance. Now, I'm going to get this red. It's not my brightest red. Again, from the inside out. Now, the outer parts of this flower are going to have more of the light hitting it. And finally, we're going to have the lightest light on the very tops. And I'm just looking at shapes of flowers here. I'm not trying to anatomically or whatever the word is, get these flowers just so. I'm just trying to get the general suggestion or the shape of that flower. And all it has to be is a suggestion. And now I'm going to go, I could do quite a few layers of color, but for just demonstration purposes, just going to do 4. The darkest dark, that medium, this red I just put down, and now like a nice bright red. And all I'm looking for now is where is that sun catching some of those brilliant colors. It's kind of coming in this way. And so I'm seeing that there's some highlights kind of on the edges of these petals. Again, nothing has to be exact, but just kind of giving the concept of where the light is. And just a suggestion. You can just give some little gestural strokes too. Capturing the light, capturing the general shape of the flower and the motion. And so we've just basically built this from the ground up. And of course you could add some stems, which would be a good idea. And stems are actually really good if you press and release. You really don't want to get stems that are too thick. And this is, I really prefer the Prismacolor New Pastels. Let me grab one of those. These are better. This is dark, but you'll get the idea. Watch the press and release. Press, release, press. And it's okay if your stems are a little bit jagged and have motion to them. Can even add a little golden color to these flowers in certain spots. That's the basic concept in a simple sketch, which I will expound upon in the full tutorial. So try to keep that concept in mind. Think of painting the darker values that are down deep and gradually lightening the values as you paint the elements that are of a middle value and eventually the highlights on top. And here we go. By the way, if you are a patron of mine, you will be getting extended commentary for this tutorial. The surface I'm using is called Pastel Matte. It's an excellent soft pastel surface. It's water friendly. I'm using white for this demonstration. I'll have a link for this in the description of this video, and I will talk more about it as I paint. It also comes in pads of colors, and I like painting on the colored surfaces, but when I am doing an underpainting and wanting to kind of tone it and get creative myself with my own choices, I often use the white. Again, it's water friendly, so you can create an underpainting with various different mediums. I'm using for this particular tutorial a product called Derwent Ink Tints Blocks. It's literally sticks of compressed ink that you can just lay on, like almost like coloring crayons, and then when you add water, the color just explodes. It's really beautiful. But if you don't have these, you could use watercolor, or you could even use soft pastel and just blend it in with water or with just a paper towel or a blending implement. The reference image is from unsplash.com, a great site for copyright-free reference images. Photo credit goes to Cody Chan. I like these sites because I don't really get to get out and find fields of poppies. I don't think there are any where I live. So the first color I'll be using for this underpainting, I think I held this upside down. It's supposed to be 0900, called Iris Blue. I often break my pastels and ink tints blocks, but in this case, I grabbed the larger side to be able to turn it on its side and really just get a nice coat of this color down on the pastel matte. I'm going to be blending this with water. Now, I'm also using the color 0760, which is called Deep Violet. Now, the reference image had a dark tree line in the distance, kind of like it was just very shaded in the distance. So I'm just using this very dark purple. When I add the water to it, you'll really see the beautiful color. And I'm adding a little bit of this dark color down where the roots of these flowers are. Now, this comes to the point of this video. When I was first painting, I would have thought I had to single out those red poppies first and almost like a paint by number, paint everything around them. However, because of mediums such as soft pastel, acrylic, and oil painting are similar, we have an ability to layer things, and actually your painting will come out much more believable and realistic when you use this technique. Now let me wet this first, and I'll talk more about the layering in a minute. I'm just using water, a large brush, and a paper towel, and now is when you will see this color come to life. And I just use the paper towel really to control the amount of water. So notice this beautiful color, kind of a combination of some of the blues and purples. Now I've switched to a brush that I like. I don't even know what this brush is. I don't even think it has a label on it, but it has these kind of frayed ends to it. So sometimes having an old brush that has flayed bristles makes for a nice feeling of grasses and loose strokes. Now, this is dry. I was going to say I waited for it to dry, but I actually use a blow dryer. I'm a little impatient. But now I'm going to establish my really darks. But see, I got this nice, beautiful underpainting color. And believe it or not, this is going to influence the painting, even if it appears that I cover the whole thing up, which lately I have not been doing. I love to let the underpainting peek through, and it just adds for that drama with color. And I'm using this darker pastel. I believe this is the Terry Ludwig eggplant color, V as in Victor 100. It's great. It looks like a black, but it's really a dark, dark purple. It has more life to it than just a black pastel. And I am just reestablishing some of these darker areas. Again, you can see in the reference image, that tree line in the distance is dark. And even though you don't see it in the image right now, I know that down deep in those grasses, is not only the ground underneath, but a tangle of grasses and weeds, and it's going to be very dark down deep in the roots. So that's what I mean about painting from the roots up. Another point I often like to mention is that our paintings actually will go through what many artists called an adolescent stage, where it looks rather messy and just a little crazy for a while. So try not to second guess yourself during these stages. It is normal. And I lose a lot of viewers at this point in the video where they're thinking, what the heck is going to happen from this? Now I'm speeding this up because it's the same principle that I talked about in my little example on the unsanded paper, adding my darks, adding a few medium darks of those greens, and blending a little more with the paper towel, and then reestablishing the deep roots in those grasses, keeping it very gestural, with a lot of freedom in the general direction, how they're growing, and developing the darks in the background. So this is really like the base layer. Of course, I got that beautiful blue and purplish underpainting underneath that you see. It's peeking through. It's really kind of neat. And so these are the deeper parts of these grasses. Even the grasses that are going to be light at the end, I'm blending them. They're still not as light as they will be in the final. So these are my roots in a way. And adding still a little bit of warmth to the tops of some of these. I'm not totally covering up those really deep dark grasses towards the bottom of the painting. And now I'm gradually going to start adding some light. Think of it as the sun. When it comes down, it filters into some of the grasses, but mostly rest upon the top, and a little bit will come down, but not totally into the depths of the deepest roots and grasses down closer to the ground. I'm going to slow this up in just a second. When I get to the flowers, I added a little bit of green to those trees. This doesn't have to be anything detailed because they're far away. Now, same kind of principle as with the initial sketch or example, where I'm getting a little bit of a darker red or a deeper red. And this is back to that concept of painting the deep parts of the flowers, painting the inside or darkest parts of the flower first, kind of like we did with the grasses, going from the roots up. So I'm just using my pastel on the side to get general shapes for some of these flowers. I want to keep them gestural. I like the way they are in the reference photo, but I'm not trying to do a photocopy of that reference image. I'm just using it to give me some inspiration. But I do like to place my flowers in a way that will make a pleasant composition. We know that flowers are going to get smaller as they recede into the distance. So you want to keep that in mind. Also keeping in mind that flowers aren't always turned the same way. Your work will look amateurish if you have all of your flowers the same shape and turned in the same direction. So remember to vary your size, vary your direction, and vary the spacing between your flowers. In other words, we don't want to create a pattern. And back to my analogy about a garden, I often layer my flowers in ways that I think how they would grow in a garden. For example, I don't add my final largest details to flowers more until the very end. It takes them a while to grow. So they're going to be the largest, they're going to be sitting on top. So right now I'm getting in more of my flowers that'll be a little more buried or a little more immature, not fully grown. And then later you'll see me really develop the focal point flowers with more color and lightness and brightness. So this is just my phase of strategically and gesturally placing some of the flowers. And once I have a general idea of my flower shapes and positioning, I am going to go in with a little bit darker like I did in my example. And that's because I was using that middle value red really just for positioning. But there are a few flowers that are going to be more of the celebrities. They're going to have a little bit more contrast, which is dark to light. So I wanted to add a little bit more dark down at the insides, like I was saying, the insides of those flowers, or the dark shadowy parts of those flowers. Now, if you're a patron of mine on my Patreon page, thank you very much, patrons, by the way. You really bless me. You're going to be seeing the rest of this tutorial in real time. The whole tutorial was a little over an hour in real time. And on Monet Cafe here, the free version, you'll still see plenty. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, add some music, and I want you to keep those thoughts in mind. The concept of painting from the roots or the darker values and layering your lights on top. And then also the same thing with the flowers, painting the inside shadowy parts of the flowers, and then adding the lights, the middle values, and then the lightest values as the sun highlights certain areas and certain petals. And you're going to see these right now. They look rather boring, but these poppies are they're going to pop, no pun intended. They're going to come to life with some of those brilliant reds, way more so than the example that I did on the unsanded paper. So I think you're going to see this concept come to life, and I hope you're going to learn a lot from it. So if you're a patron, keep watching real-time content and some more commentary. And on Monet Cafe, enjoy. Let me know what you thought. Don't go anywhere because I'm going to be back at the end. And real quickly, a little commercial break. If you would like to become a patron of mine, it's only $5 a month. It not only gives you extra content, extra instruction, lots of goodies, but your support ensures that I can continue bringing these free lessons to Monet Cafe. So bravo. Thank you, patrons. God bless you. I'm popping back in here now. I keep saying poppies. I really don't mean these puns. But I'm popping back in because now is where I'm starting to really add some of those brights. I like to call them brights rather than lights because sometimes they're not a really light color. It's just a really bright color, like this red I'm using here. And I'm using this, again, strategically, keeping my composition in mind to really enhance some of the flowers that are on top and more of the central stars, you could say. So that's really where some of this layers or levels comes in as well. Not just the grasses, but working your flowers as well with that layering or the timing of when you really make one of them shine. And that should be reserved for more of those final mark making, brighter colors, and even your marks being firmer with pressure. So that way you'll ensure that your composition will have some that really shine and some that are a little bit more subdued and are supporting characters. I'm adding some of my final marks that are kind of like sprinkles on a cake, just the things that are going to really make it sparkle. And I hope in this lesson you were really able to grasp the concept of painting from the ground up or from the roots up, layering much like you're planting a garden. I hope you enjoyed that. Here's the final. I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving this month, and I'm looking forward to the month of December. I'll be announcing a new theme. If you're a patron of mine, we're going to have lots of fun, and you can become a patron right here at that link and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And as always, God bless and happy painting.